For 7 years, Better Call Saul was on the air, slowly unraveling the story of Jimmy McGill / Saul Goodman / Gene Takovic / Kevin Costner. Being that the show is a prequel, we all knew going in where the story would end up. Or at least, so we thought we did. But nevertheless, the show still manages to feel just as fresh and engaging as its predecessor, primarily by employing two methods. The first method it employs is intertwining the lives of the characters we know from Breaking Bad, like Saul and Mike, with plotlines and characters we do not. Sure, we all knew that in Breaking Bad, Mike tells Walter off, leading to Walter going full baby Wawa mode and shooting him to death, but just because we knew how he's going to die, doesn't mean we know everything about him. Quite the contrary, in fact.
Hey, kid named Finger.
For instance, audiences absolutely did not know what happened to Mike's son, or how he ended up working for Gus in the first place. Better Call Saul answers both these questions while tying them into a character arc that shows how Mike's sense of morality shifts across the show. As for characters like Kim, Nacho, Howard, or Chuck, their fates hang very much so in the balance since none of them appear in Breaking Bad. That means that scenes when their lives are in peril generate real tension. One of the best things about the show is how it provides new context for scenes from Breaking Bad.
I barely know Ignacio. Whatever he did alone. It wasn't me. It was Ignacio.
Oh, no. No, it wasn't me. It was Ignacio. He's the one. Lalo didn't send you? No, Lalo.
Mike's friendship with Werner, which ends tragically, does a great deal to explain why he's so cold in Breaking Bad. When Mike is forced to kill Werner, it leaves a permanent impact on him. The same is true of Nacho's relationship with Mike. Part of the reason Mike goes on to be so protective of Jesse is because Jesse reminds him of Nacho, who he couldn't save. It doesn't matter that we know where the characters end up because the process of seeing them go from point A to point B in itself is fascinating. The second way in which Better Call Saul manages to keep itself as engaging as Breaking Bad is the creative way it reveals information to the audience. Most shows have a bad habit of just telling you verbally what's going on in a character's head, which is not only lazy and unrealistic, but it also robs the viewer of part of the fun of storytelling. The mystery. Better Call Saul very rarely lets us know what's actually going on in a character's head, even during very important scenes. Why is Kim calling all these people? Why is Mike chewing gum when he's being pursued by Lalo? Why is Lalo visiting this random house? Why is Jimmy dressed as Howard? The clues will slowly start to present themselves to the audience as scenes unfold. Oh, Kim was trying to bring a client over to HHM to save her career. Oh, Mike was using the gum to jam the parking machine and trap Lalo. Oh, Lalo's here to murder them and use them as a body double. Oh, Jimmy's just trying to make Clifford Maine think that Howard uses prostitutes. Again.
What is that? Howard?
The moment that a character's plan clicks in your head and suddenly everything makes sense feels incredibly satisfying. Not to mention the fact that not overtly telling us what every character's plans are makes the plot harder to predict and thus more surprising at times. Better Call Saul also makes great use of visual metaphors that convey information to the audience between the lines. Think about, for instance, the cup that Kim gifts to Jimmy in season 2. It's a mark of their relationship with one another and Saul's career at that point in time. When Jimmy takes a job at Davis & Maine and gets a sparkly new car along with it later that episode, the cup no longer fits, signaling to us, the audience, that his old life is at odds with his new one. Like the cup, Jimmy doesn't fit at Davis & Maine, so he enacts some chicanery. Later on, that same cup is destroyed along with Jimmy's innocence when his life gets shaken up forever in the desert. The cup then serves not only as a metaphor for Jimmy's life, but also a plot device when Kim sees that it's been destroyed, which signifies to her that Jimmy's been lying about what happened in the desert. So, she throws the cup away, and along with it, the final remnants of Jimmy McGill as Saul Goodman moves in to replace him. Also, Better Call Saul is fucking hilarious.
Gosh, you're big. You're so big. My goodness, look at you.
There's a lot you could talk about pertaining to Better Call Saul's quality, but one of the best things about the show is its ending. Better Call Saul Season 6 is without a doubt one of the finest final seasons of television I've ever seen. It's also one of the most atypical final seasons of television I've ever seen. To truly understand why it's so special, let's first go over the final season of Breaking Bad.
What are you even trying to say?
At the beginning of Season 5, we see Walt having more or less completed his transition into an anti-hero. He's still the protagonist of the story, and we as an audience understand his motives, but that makes them no less selfish. Season 5 is the culmination of all the terrible acts we've seen Walt commit over the course of the show, the worst of which being, of course, in Season 4 when he declined to go go-karting with Jesse.
You want to do something? Go-karts?
Go-karts. What?
Yeah, there's a track down by the Coliseum. It's pretty fun.
No.
They could have had so much fun together, but Walt just had to be churlish about it. This is an absolutely disgusting moment from Walter, and arguably the moment he becomes Heisenberg. Bravo, Vince. For real though, at the start of the season, Walt has enough money to just step away from the meth business and live out the rest of his days happily with his family, but he won't do it. Because the truth is, the only thing that makes him happy at this point is the meth business. Walt essentially views his work as an extension of his own ego. In some ways, it's nothing more than a dick measuring contest to him. Even when Mike tries to reason with him and metaphorically tells him to put your dick away, Walter, he'll have none of it. So he kills Mike, and has Mike's 10 men murdered in prison in an attempt to protect his identity. He finally decides to step away from the business after losing Jesse and seeing just how much money he's actually made.
How much is enough? How big does this pile have to be?
But at that point, it was too late. His fate was already sealed. In the second half of Season 5, we see Walt's downfall. One by one, his friends and family turn against him. He tries to have Jesse killed, but that falls through. Then he summons his neo-Nazi pals to protect his stash of money, but that falls through even harder.
Do what you're gonna do.
Once the last of his family turns against him, he truly has nothing left.
What the hell is wrong with you? We're a family!
And during the penultimate episode, we watch as his will to live slowly whittles down to nothing. He almost turns himself in, but upon seeing his former colleagues discredit his work on TV.
We're talking about a person who was there early on, but who had virtually nothing to do with the creation of the company.
So what was Walter White's contribution?
The company name.
The company name. As far as I can recall, his contribution begins and ends right there.
The last spark of determination within him wells up, and he hatches a plot to kill the neo-Nazis who stole his money, get the money he still has to his family, and hey, free Jesse along the way. So, he kills all of his enemies, while killing himself in the process. As the script remarks,
his final expression is one of faint satisfaction.
These last 3 episodes are, without a doubt, the climax of the series. Everything goes out with a bang, quite literally. Walt doesn't redeem himself, but he does go out doing something good. It's a bittersweet and satisfying ending to a masterful show. Meanwhile, the ending of Better Call Saul, while structurally similar in some ways, is entirely different at its core. Both seasons are split into 2 halves, with the first half showcasing our protagonist at the top of their game, and the second half showcasing their fall from grace. The similarities don't end there, however. At the beginning of these final seasons, both Jimmy and Walt are no longer fueled by a desire for money as they once were. Rather, they're fueled by fuel.
You think this is bad? This chicanery?
I don't know how that got in there. I meant to say they do it because they enjoy it, and it gives their life meaning. In the immortal words of Howard Hamlin,
Screw the money. You did it for fun. You get off on it.
rest easy, King. And speaking of Howard, Jimmy and Kimmy spend the first 7 episodes of the season trying to ruin his life just because they hate him. Jim and Kim's plot to sabotage Howard succeeds in one of the most uncomfortably hilarious scenes I've ever seen, mind you.
Take a look.
Is that supposed to be me?
and then they have sweet sex, presumably involving a foot job.
Don't be a sussy backup.
But then Howard confronts him and ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like when Hank died, it's technically our protagonist's fault what happened, but it wasn't what they wanted, and in both cases, it ruins their life. One important difference from Hank's death in Breaking Bad, however, is that Howard's death occurs halfway through the season, instead of near the end. Episode 8 wraps up the storyline with Lalo, and Episode 9 wraps up everything else.
I have had the time of my life with you. But we are bad for everyone around us. Other people suffer.
Kim breaks up with Jimmy, Mike confesses the truth to Nacho's father, and Gus has gay thoughts. Every episode following this shows us how Jimmy's life has fallen apart, similarly to the final few episodes of Breaking Bad. Both Walt and Jimmy undergo anti-hero character arcs in which their morals degrade over the course of the show, but Better Call Saul makes sure to leave off on a different note from Breaking Bad. The final stretch of episodes of Better Call Saul are not only nothing like the last few episodes of Breaking Bad, but rather are borderline experimental in their structure. Most of the scenes are out of order, like we're watching a Tarantino film. At first, I must admit, I wasn't sure what Vince and Peter were going for here. However, once the final 2 episodes had aired, Waterworks and Saul Gone, I still can't believe they actually called it that, everything seemed to click into place. I must say, it was a risky move to conduct the end of the show like this, especially since you pretty much have to have seen Breaking Bad to fully understand it. I can just imagine viewers who hadn't seen Breaking Bad going like, wait, didn't Saul just get kidnapped and threatened in the desert with an open grave? Why is he hanging out with his kidnappers in an RV now? What is going on? Even so, as someone who has seen Breaking Bad, I can safely say that every scene has its purpose. It's certainly not just a series of random cameos, as much as some may have accused it of being that. Throughout the last several episodes of the show, we switch back and forth between 2 timelines. The Saul timeline, set during the events of Breaking Bad, and the Gene timeline. Gene is the persona Jimmy adopted when he went on the run after the events of Breaking Bad.
From here on out, I'm Mr. Low Profile, just another douchebag with a job and 3 pairs of Dockers. If I'm lucky, a month from now, best case scenario, I'm managing a Cinnabon in Omaha.
And he leads a drab, lonely life in constant paranoia that he'll be caught.
Has anybody been asking about me? Any customers come to the store? Nobody at all?
It's worth mentioning that every season of the show up to this point starts with a flash forward to the Gene timeline, not unlike how we got several flash forwards to Walt's final few days in Breaking Bad. This serves to achieve a gloomy sense of inevitability. No matter how well things seem to be going now, it all leads to this. Even the show's titles slowly turn to black and white throughout the seasons, indicating that Jimmy is getting closer and closer to the end of the road. These Gene scenes are shot in black and white to really hammer home just how empty his life is, whereas the Saul scenes are still in color. Despite this contrast, both of these timelines directly parallel each other. Namely, they both present us with a version of Jimmy hiding from the world in one way or another. The Saul timeline shows us a version of Jimmy who has lost everyone he cares about, mostly Kim, and as such, he has adopted a very bombastic, aloof persona as a cover-up to hide his true self.
Hey, Sweet Cheeks, who do we got next? Let's make some money.
The Gene timeline shows us a version of Jimmy who has lost, well, everything, and lives his life in hiding. Then, both timelines present Jimmy with an opportunity to make a lot of money. Immoral though it may be, both times he seizes the opportunity. In Saul's case, it's the chance to work with Walter White, and in Gene's case, it's theft. After getting a taste of just how much money he can make, he gets greedy and goes back for more. Saul decides he's gonna go against Mike's advice and hunt down Walt to convince him to enter a partnership with him. And Gene starts conducting scams on rich people at a bar, one of whom happens to have cancer. The show makes this parallel even more clear by use of editing. We cut between a scene in which Saul walks towards the high school Walt works at, and a scene in which Gene walks towards the house of the cancer patient he's trying to steal from. In both timelines, Jimmy is about to attempt to exploit a dying man for money, and in both cases, this will bring about his downfall. In case the cancer wasn't enough to make this connection abundantly clear, the show also adds an Easter egg to further strengthen it. The amount of money the cancer patient Gene is trying to steal from has in the bank is $737,000, the exact amount of money Walt set out to earn for his family.
$737,000. That's what I need. That is what I need.
Oh, and it's also the number of the plane that crashes above Walt's house, but that's part of a totally different metaphor. Working with Walter White results in Saul having to flee from his cushy job as a lawyer and go into hiding, whereas the robbery results in Jeff's mother figuring out Gene's true identity, resulting in his capture. Twice, we see Jimmy's greed cloud his judgment and result in him losing everything. But hold on, not only are these two timelines reflections of each other, but they are also reflections of the entire show as a whole. Think about it. In season 1, we see Jimmy unable to express his true self and beaten down by the world. The first time an opportunity for big cash presents itself to him, he doesn't take it.
What are you doing?
The right thing.
But after seeing where honesty gets him, he promises to never make that mistake again.
We could have gone home with $800,000 each, tax-free.
I know what stopped me. And you know what? It's never stopping me again.
Throughout the show, his greed and his conniving nature swallow up his persona more and more until he reaches the point where he will happily work with the cartel. Things go south for him when he takes everything too far in his scheme to defame Howard Hamlin, and his life is ruined when Kim leaves him. 3 times Jimmy undergoes the same development, and 3 times it ends with him losing what matters most to him at the time. Now, let's talk about Kim for a second. Kim is the most important person in the world to Jimmy, and throughout the show, his dishonesty begins to rub off on her, to the point where the scheme to take down Howard is actually her idea.
At the end of it, he might never be able to practice law again. You would not be okay with it.
Wouldn't I?
However, at her core, she is not like Jimmy, or her manipulative mother for that matter. She can't turn her back on what she did, so her guilt eats away at her. By the time we see Kim in the Gene timeline, she has hit her breaking point, so she confesses what she has done to Howard's widow.
The lies you two made up, the picture you painted, that's all anybody remembers.
I want to change that.
In a sense, Kim has exonerated herself of her sins, leaving Jimmy as the lone perpetrator still running from his past. At first, Jimmy tries to do what he's always done and slip his way out of trouble.
I was kneeling in front of an open grave with a gun pointed at my head. That was my introduction to Walter White. I did it because I knew what he would do to me if I refused. Over and over, I thought about going to the police.
However, this time, something changes, and that something is Kim.
Kim Wexler walked into the Albuquerque DA's office last month. She spilled her guts about Howard Hamlin.
Let's get this in writing. Not a word changes.
After he finds out that Kim has confessed, the will to keep running away vanishes within him and is replaced with the will to make Kim love him again. At the end of the day, that's what the man cares about, Kim and her feet. In a sense, Better Call Saul is, at its core, just a love story, and a damn good one at that. So Jimmy breaks the pattern. He doesn't run this time, but rather he confesses everything he's done.
I was kneeling in front of an open grave with a gun pointed at my head. That was my introduction to Walter White. I was terrified, but not for long. That night I saw opportunity. Fact is, Walter White couldn't have done it without me.
He does it knowing it will land him in prison for life, but that's okay because not only is there nothing for him on the outside except Cinnabon, but by doing this he will regain the respect of Kim. And that's exactly what happens. In the penultimate scene of the show, we see Kim by his side once again, just like old times. And that brings me back to Breaking Bad. The ending of that show is perfect, but it doesn't redeem Walter White. It simply confirms that he did what he did for himself, not for his family.
You need to understand.
I have to hear one more time that you did this for the family.
I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. I was alive.
No matter what angry YouTube commenters who defend him may claim. A redemption arc would not have worked because the point of the story was that Walt just wanted to feel
awake.
And even if that meant destroying the lives of everyone around him, so be it. It was an exploration into a darker side of the human psyche and a warning against following the same path as Walt, even if it seemed sympathetic at times. Jimmy McGill was never like Walter White. He was actually capable of talking about the concept of a time machine without fucking losing his mind over my second love, thermodynamics.
Leave all this time-traveling nonsense out of it.
Jimmy may have manipulated just as many, if not more people than Walt in his time, but ultimately, he didn't do what he did just so that he could feel like an alpha male like Walt did. He did it because he had nowhere else to turn, having been boxed in by his brother and everyone else.
Why were you working against me, Chuck?
Have some more chicken.
What?
Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
I thought you were proud of me.
Have some more chicken?
Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
Have some more chicken?
Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled.
And in the end, he did it so that he could be with Kim. Walt didn't redeem himself, but Jimmy did, at least in part. And he was reunited with the one person left alive who mattered to him. He also got to hang out with a Dhar Mann actor on the prison bus. So you see, he got the best honor of all.
Hey Dhar Mann fam, I hope you love that message.
Better Call Saul's ending may have been extremely sad, but ultimately it leaves off on a positive note. So is Better Call Saul's ending better than Breaking Bad's? Well, maybe ultimately it doesn't matter. Maybe what actually matters is that even though it's entirely different, Better Call Saul's ending manages to be just as effective, which is quite a feat in itself. Don't judge a book by its cover. Better Call Saul may be a mere spin-off of Breaking Bad, but don't ever think that makes it lesser. Like how the show creatively reveals information to the audience, sometimes you have to see things in a new light to truly understand them. Sometimes it takes seeing things from a new perspective to appreciate what they really are. And that's more true of Better Call Saul than any other show I can think of. Don't compare it to Breaking Bad because it's not trying to be Breaking Bad, it's trying to be Better Call Saul. It doesn't just copy its source material, it builds upon it. And that's why Better Call Saul is one of the best spin-offs on TV. The bus scene is cringe. I'm sorry, I have to say